I do have people that are, let's just to use a very common term, very far right and very far left. They're very unhappy about what we're doing, but I really don't believe they have to be, because I really think this sells itself. And when you talk about comprehensive immigration reform, which is where I would like to get to eventually, if we do the right bill here, we are not very far away. We've done most of it. If you want to know the truth, Dick, if we do this properly, DACA, you're not so far away from comprehensive immigration reform. And if you want to take it that further step, I'll take the heat. I don't care. I'll take all the heat you want to give me. And I'll take the heat off both the Democrats and the Republicans.
Just wanted to get that in there and then, jump in, David. But then my other question as I'm listening to him is, should Democrats believe him?
Well, Democrats are not going to believe much of what he's saying, and there's such a trust deficit overall between him and the opposition party. So I don't know that they will. But I think what you can believe is that Donald Trump had always envisioned himself, as he was on the road to the presidency, as somebody who can work in a bipartisan fashion. That ended up not being the strategy he went with in the first year of his presidency, quite obviously. I do think there are a couple things that are important to note here. One, you heard John Cornyn, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, and Lindsey Graham both have to sort of push back on the president and remind him that he's in the driver's seat here, when he was sort of like saying, I'll send what you send me. And John Cornyn said, remember, Mr. President, what Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell told you this weekend at Camp David. We really need to know what your parameters are. The Hill wants that protection, the Republicans do, of this is what the president is willing to sign so that they don't feel they're passing something that falls apart. That's one. Two, you heard also talking about that comprehensive piece and do it the second day. Jeff Flake, the Republican from Arizona, who was part of the gang that put together the last bipartisan immigration reform effort in the Senate that went nowhere in the House, Brooke, he said, Mr. President, that took 7 months of nonstop work and time between Republicans and Democrats every day, staff on the weekends. Which reminds you, this is such an enormous issue that the idea that you can just do comprehensive immigration reform in short order with the politics of it being what it is because Donald Trump snapped his fingers, that's not a reality either. And I think Jeff Flake was reminding the president of that.
With me now, our senior political analyst, David Gergen. So good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Brooke.
What did you make of that meeting?
It was weird.
It was weird.
But it was positive weird. I think opening it up and letting us see them talk to each other, there was a positive feeling about that. I'm glad they did that. I think it was smart on the part of the White House. And by the way, I thought that Trump seemed to be on message today and seemed to be with it. Always talk about his mental health. That little clip probably helped him a little bit. People can say he seems to be okay in that, So all that being said, I thought it also was true that the president left it totally confusing as to where we go from here.
It was, let's do, maybe I'll do DACA. Will we do clean DACA? We can do clean DACA, but maybe down the road, or maybe the next thing is comprehensive and doesn't include a wall. And I was left a little confused as well. But I think you're right, and David also pointed out it was a positive thing, and he seems to really enjoy. Bipartisanship.
Yeah, it was smart, and they're trying to change the tone now. This year, they need to go bipartisan because they need Democratic votes to get their measures through. So I reckon at the end of the day, though, the president is going to have to draw this back to the White House. He is going to have to say what exactly he's willing to sign and not sign.
What are his parameters?
Yeah, and he can sit down with Dick Durbin, the leading House Republican Democrat in the Senate. And what are his parameters? Because he seemed to be going in a soft position, and then he took a very, very hard position over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Got to have the wall, got to have this, got to have that, which made it impossible to get there. I think he's going to have to back down.
But isn't that part of the president's MO? He wants to, just listening to people who spend a lot of time with him, when he's got folks in a room who maybe they're not on the same side, such as Democrats, he wants to please.
Yes.
He wants to get on and, agree on something. But then once they're out of that room, things can change like that.
They sure can, especially early in the morning on a tweet. They thought Schumer and Pelosi thought they had a deal on this, some time ago. And it all changed within a few days.
let me just also going back to the genesis of the wall, because I think it's important to remind everyone where this whole idea came from in the first place, right? This was the beating of the drum all during the Trump campaign. And so let me quote Joshua Green's book, author and CNN political analyst, who talked to former Trump advisor Sam Nunberg for his book, The Devil's Bargain. This is what he writes. Roger Stone and I came up with the idea of the wall, and we talked to Steve Bannon about it, said Nunberg. It was to make sure he talked about immigration. Initially, Trump seemed indifferent to the idea, but in January 2015, he tried it out at the Iowa Freedom Summit. Quote, one of his pledges was, I will build a wall. And the place just went nuts, said Nunberg. Warming to the concept, Trump waited a beat and then added a flourish that brought down the House. Nobody, he says, builds like Trump. That is how this all started.
Fascinating.
That became the sticking point for the campaign.
Yeah.
You know, that is what, if you went to a Trump rally, people would, you know, get out of their seats and cheer on. And the notion that this wouldn't be part of this original deal with the Democrats, because they're all about clean DACA,
Right.
how is that going to make all the people that filled those Trump rallies and the base feel?
I totally agree, but at the same time, I think he needs to get a deal done.
Do you think it's more about a deal with him right now?
I think
policy?
he's going to find a way to drop the wall and sort of do that later. He's going to ask for some sort of concession from the Democrats. I think it could be outside the realm of immigration. For example, he could say, look, I will go with you on this against my better judgment. I'll come to it later. But in exchange for that, I want some firm commitments on infrastructure. That's, you know, there are a lot of different deals you can cut. What's
Interesting.
What's odd about the way he does this is that he seems to take any deal they'll pass. He doesn't seem to be a man who has strong principles. He throws things out there and gets an audience response. He goes with it, and then suddenly he tosses it aside. You know, is he going to die over this wall thing or not? I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to let this go down over the wall.
So you think he may drop it and pick it up at a later date?
I think he may drop it and find out ways to come back and do radar and other things to cover up pieces of the wall and you know, do a virtual wall. I think he'd be making a serious mistake, a political mistake as well as a substantive mistake, to let the Dreamers die here. I mean, let that force all those 800,000 people to go back. And well, look what they're already doing to the El Salvadorans. My goodness, I just think it's bad policy and it's bad politics.
He said he's willing to take the heat, so we'll see.
We'll see.
If he means what he says. David Gergen, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brooke.